Hey folks, welcome back to Road Hard Restorations. We're finally back on the 74 Duster. In this video, we're going to try to get that and that in there. All right, let's get busy. When you're dropping an engine in a car, most often the time you put it in from the top. Chevys, Fords, Mopars, doesn't matter. You can always just kind of fish them in through the top. With the transmission sticking out and working by myself, I'm kind of worried about, smacking the firewall, causing damage to the fresh paint and everything. I know I can be super careful and everything, but it's best to have help with that. I don't have that here today. So Mopars from the factory, they would bring everything up from the bottom. They'd have the K-frame, the suspension, engine, everything mounted together as an assembly, and then just bring it back up from underneath. I know there's some guys out there, I think Chris Birdsong has a tool that he was selling for a while there, where you can rig up safely basically an engine hoist to lift up the front of the car, slide your engine and stuff underneath it, and then lower it down, raise the engine, put it together that way. That would work, except I don't have an axle in the back. So trying to pivot on jack stands would not be a safe thing, because I don't want this whole thing just kind of falling over and slamming into my toolbox and everything. So I am going to try something new, kind of a hybrid between the two. Instead of bringing the engine up from underneath with the car up in the air, or dropping the engine down from the top, what I'm going to do, I'm going to slide this under there, just kind of let it sit. I'm going to pick this up with the cherry picker. I'm going to drop it all the way down to the ground, connect the engine and the transmission under the car, raise it up, hook up the rear cross member to hold the tail shaft of the transmission, and then bring the K-frame up underneath, bolt it into the frame rails, and then drop the motor down on top of it. That'll prevent possibly damaging my paint job. It'll also make stabbing this into the engine easier than it is trying to lift this up and into the car where there's an engine sitting up high. So with this sitting on this roller, it should be about the right height with the engine on the ground. If I need to block it up or something, I can do that. So that's the plan. We're going to try that and see how it works. If so, great. If not, well, we can do the old-fashioned way. So we got the old K-frame. I did this on an earlier video where I just kind of refinished it to epoxy primer on the bare metal after it was dipped, and then just rattle can black engine paint. I think it was engine paint. Might have just been regular Krylon. I don't remember. I did a video though, so you can go back and look at that, see how I did that. I might have to reference that as well myself. Before we get the engine out off of the run stand, I got to take off the carburetor because that's where the lift plate's going to be. I'm going to take off the front pulleys, take off the headers, and electrical and stuff. So it should be pretty straightforward to get this off of there. But before I try to stab the transmission, I got to make sure I get the clutch fork in here. So I got the clutch fork, I got the pivot, throwout bearing, and then the little dust boot. Got my hardware all set up here. I have the transmission mount. I have the transmission cross member. So I think I have everything out that I need. But before I put the engine in, some things are just easier to do while the engine's out, such as brakes. So I've already got the combination brake valve here, left front brake line. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up this little brake line that goes to the back, and then install the brake line that goes up to the right front, because that'll just be easier to set that in place without the motor being in the way. Everything else should be pretty straightforward. There's not a whole lot in these old cars. Wiring and stuff will be the top half of the engine base, so I don't have to worry about that so much with the engine in there. So this is pretty much it. It's just the brake line. It's the only thing that's going to be tricky if the motor's in there. And it may not be anyway, but I like to have that stuff in there first. That way you're not, trying to fighting with the space that's available. So here's the original brake line that came off the car. It's in pretty good shape. A little dirty. I just kind of cleaned it with some brake cleaner and a red Scotch-Brite. It's got the wrap protective spiral springy thing around it. So it's hard to get it like super sharp looking, but so this isn't a Concours show car, it's just a nice driver on a budget. I mean, I could buy a new line, make it look pretty, but it's like $160. I'm like, I don't think I need to spend that money on this. This is much easier without the engine installed. Sometimes you gotta kind of wiggle it to get this thing to tighten up, but got that finger tight. And this one will hook onto here, but I got something on the other side of this line that's not cooperating. So if I'm looking here, I can see, oh yeah, I'm caught up with this. There it is. So I was wondering why this was kind of binding up here. So we should be able to set that in place. I kind of accidentally tweaked it a little bit. Alrighty. So should be good to go just like so, I think. Just kind of taking this and putting it where it needs to go. This is actually kind of boogered up around here. I guess I could have straightened that out first, but you know, once I get the steering column plate in there, I think it'll be fine. All right, like I said, just kind of bend this back up. Okay, nice and tight. Okay, these are done. So this guy right here, I want to make sure that I'm clean and this is okay to go back on. So I'm going to grab a brake cleaner and maybe a little wire brush so I can clean up these threads a little bit, just like I did with the other lines. I'll blow some brake cleaner in there, and then with the air nozzle, I'll kind of try to blow out the lines a little bit. Just gonna clean up the threads here. See if we can knock off some of the blue here. Not too worried about way under here. Like I said, this is just a nice driver. Not replacing everything that just because it's a little dirty. If I can refurbish and reuse something, that works just fine, no problem. So I pull in this back, slide that back, and then I can actually clean the tube itself. So that way, when the nut comes down, it's not binding up on all the gunk. And if you have your metal lines that don't have this shielding on there, I mean, this stuff is actually really easy to just kind of refurbish and make it look, I mean, it's just a couple seconds, but you know, you can make your lines look really like new again just by, you know, a little elbow grease. But with this shielding on there, it's kind of hard to do that unless you cut the end off, took all the shielding off, and cleaned it all separately, or dunked the whole thing in a bath. But again, we're not worried about that, so making it all perfect or anything. So let me see if I can get this guy in here. Should be pretty straightforward, I think. Just want to make sure. Oh, you know what? I wanted to clean out the line first. Thanks for reminding me. I use this type of end with the little rubber tip. Make sure I'm centered on there, otherwise it'll spray back at you. You can hear it coming out the back. Do it again. And inevitably some of this stuff splashes back. So that's why I just kind of cover it with a rag, or in this case, my Scotch Brite. All right, so I'm going to put this on, just kind of gently bend it, and then start screwing it in. Now with these things, they're always a pain. You have to get them just like perfectly in line with the fitting for it to go in right. And so sometimes it'll just kind of wiggle the line as I'm trying to turn the nut and get it started. And once I get it started, if I can't keep turning it, then I just keep wiggling the line to get the tension off of it. And you can kind of feel it when it's ready to go in. You bring it in by finger tight, and then I'll go ahead and if you can't get the wrench over the shielding, just pull it back a little bit. Okay. Remember, it gets captured. So just undo that. There we go. All right, that'll work. And then this also has these retainers here, and I think one goes right here, if I'm not mistaken. Push it on with this. Ah, got it. Okay, that's holding that. And then it looks like there's another one right here. Okay. So there's a little bit of blue here on the clip, but it's not a big deal. I mean, it's way down low. I mean, you're gonna have engine and exhaust and steering column. Nobody's ever gonna see it anyway. but it doesn't really matter, quite honestly. Okay, just kind of get all this tape out of here. And then some more here. Some more right here. There you go. Let's get this transmission ready to go into the car. I'm gonna have to pull the shifter handle here off. Next, to install the transmission mount. All right, so I want to leave this kind of loose, so that way we can kind of make sure we get everything lined up under the car. I was going to go ahead and mount the cross member on here as well, so I think this kind of snakes through here, and then underneath, and then this goes up like so. But I think with the exhaust pipes sitting there, this thing's probably going to be in the way. It's going to stick out and hit the pipes, so I'm going to leave that off for right now. So I'm going to set the cross member kind of in the vicinity of where it's going to go, along with all the hardware. And we'll just drive this back there. All the way back. And then when we drop the engine down, we'll slide it forward, mate it up, and then lift the whole thing up. I got the 318 out here in the open. We're going to kind of get around it a little bit. If you haven't seen this engine run stand, there's a video showing this engine running on it. So I'll take a few things off. I'll probably take the alternator off, front pulleys. That gives us a little bit of extra wiggle room under the hood. I'm going to take the headers off of there. Got to take the carburetor off so we can mount the lift plate. Actually, I think I need to drain the water. And then pull the hoses off of there. And yeah, let's get started with the headers and go from there. Okay, should be able to just up and away. All right, this is a square bore to spread bore adapter because this manifold is a spread bore. I don't want to put my lift plate on here because we're actually lifting on this adapter. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this adapter plate off because I don't want to, like I said, lift. Basically, I'll be holding the whole weight with just this adapter. So I'm going to get the screwdriver out here, take those 4 screws out, pull this off, and then put the lift plate on there. I've got the plate on there. I got 4 heavy-duty bolts. There's little holes here, like if you're doing a 2-barrel or something. I don't want to accidentally drop anything in there, so just paranoia's sake, just cover that up. The oil pressure line goes in here. I just have this little plastic line for the test stand. I'm going to be using a braided stainless steel line in the car. And so basically just use a 7/16 and a 3/8. Just knock that loose, unscrew it. So the coil had 3 wires going to it, 1 to the tachometer and 2 to the ignition. The distributor itself just simply unplugs from the ignition box here. So this is my ground. And then I have 1 wire to the starter motor here. Now this is the later model style starter motor. And I'm using the factory solenoid in the car. So basically I just simply have a jumper wire from here to here. So when you engage the solenoid, it engages this and just works. Done it this way on both my cars. Ford, similar setup with the newer mini starters. Just jumper it and works perfect. Haven't had any problems with it that way. So we have the clutch fork pivot here. It just bolts in right here. And then the clutch fork, that hole there, this little spring tab clicks into that. And then basically just go like so. And then on the end of the fork is where your throat bearing goes. And this will slide in here. clicks into place. So this should just slip onto here, like so. And this one just kind of clips in there. You know, it looks and feels really sloppy, but that's kind of how they are. So now you can see down inside the hole there, already got the pilot bushing installed. This will kind of flop around here until we get the transmission input. Alright, we are just about in line. Just need to roll this guy forward. See if I can get him right in where we need to be. Okay, and you drop the motor just a hair. Oh, I'm fighting the exhaust system here too. Ah, the exhaust is hanging up on the oil filter. That's what it is, okay. Alright, the little cart that this thing's sitting on is binding up with the other exhaust pipe. Let's see if I can get this out of there now. There it goes. Okay. Okay, now I got some wiggle room. All right, cool. All right, let's try this again. All right, so this will go. This will go like so. You can see it's almost in there. All right, I'm gonna admit defeat. I think in theory, if the whole car was higher, so I can actually get under there a little easier, and maybe with a buddy, you know, we can kind of manipulate it, get it together. Because the idea was to raise both of them together, put the cross member in, and then put the other K-frame up underneath. So that's not going to work. So do it the old-fashioned way. I'm going to raise the motor back up, slide the cross member up under there, bolt it in, and then set the motor in. So let me reset. The exhaust pipes weren't in there. Those are really in our way and in a bind. So I forgot how heavy this stupid thing was. Well, it's sitting in there. I gotta get the transmission in there now. Oh joy. Exhaust pipe should come right up to meet the manifold. No problemo. And this one here, same thing. Lots of clearance. So we're all good there. Can't wait to get this all buttoned up because I have some different valve covers I'm going to put on there. It'll look a lot better. If I lower the hoist, the engine's going to tilt back too far. Distributor's probably going to sit up against the firewall and scratch the crap out of it. Puts undue stress on the motor mounts. So I need to get busy and get that transmission in there. All right, finally got the engine installed, transmission's installed. I had to disconnect and take off all of the shift linkage because it was getting in the way, trying to fight working between the two exhaust pipes. I was going to drop the exhaust altogether, but you know, stuff gets rusted on there. I didn't want to sit there and bust a bunch of studs and stuff trying to get that off of there, but just take the linkage off and it went right in. So took a little finagling, but we got it. It's unbelievable how heavy those cast iron 4-speeds are. But we got her in. Before I put the manifolds on, I got to get the steering box in there. So next up is the steering and suspension. You saw in an older video, oh gosh, about a year or so ago, where I rebuilt all of the components for the suspension. So that'll probably be my next video to get that installed. So stay tuned for that. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.